CLC Stage 7 Grammar E-Lecture. In this e-lecture, we're going to cover a fair amount of stuff. Not a lot of forms, but a fair amount of stuff. So let's have a little patience. We're going to cover two types of verbs. Now, we've only covered indicative, which indicate tense. Now we're going to play with other modes, such as the imperative, which is used for commands, and the infinitive, which is translated at this stage just to. We'll be adding another little mini case called the vocative, which is used to address people. We'll deal with de plus ablative, which could either be about or separation. I have a cute little cartoon on interjections. Tell you how the negative imperative is formed, and then play with adverb questions. So, end summation. How many of these parts that we're going to cover is going to deal with stuff on the National Latin exam? Well, that always is, and that always is, and that always is. There's up to 3. And that sometimes is, let's say 3.5. And that always is, and that's 4. And that always is, well, that's 5. So we're going to have 5 questions out of the 40 that'll get us the National Latin Exam Gold Medal. It's going to be covered in this chapter. So let's start with the imperative. Now, the imperative is a verb, but it's a different type of verb. It used for commands. It's called the present imperative because it's formed off that present stem. But now look at the endings. They're simply shortened. And it's on imperatives are only used for second person. You can only tell you to do something. You go close the door. You get me a sandwich. I love sandwiches. So here we have laudate. Notice the shortened. Widite, mita, mitite, cape, capite, audite, and then the irregular s, este. There's some other irregulars you got to worry about. Dico, deek, dicite, duke, ducite, faccio, make or do. Facite, fair, ferte. And then this one is a big one. We'll see this, nolo, nolite. So imperatives are used for commands. Go, run. Ora et labora, work and pray. These are commands. Listen, Jupiter. All right, so we'll see those in usage in just a second. We also need to worry about the infinitive. Now, the infinitive is not used directly for commands, but it's just translated as to at this stage. To praise, to see, to send. And the endings they're straightforward. Laudare, videre, mittere, capere, audire, and then, of course, the irregular esse. So it often uses to complete a sentence. We're going to show later on how it's used in irregulars to show a command, a negative command. And it's going to be covered later. But we've got to load that form too. That's going to be on the quiz. Now, so the present infinitive is formed off of the present stem with those same endings. All right. Vocative address phrase. Well, what do you do when you got to talk to somebody? You got to call them up, so you got to use the vocative. Vocative looks just like the nominative all the time, except for second declension nouns in the singular, where it's brutus, right? Horte, o garden, or to I, where it's gladii, no I. So the imperative, the vocative is used to take a noun and to say who you're talking to, such as o dies immortales, and sometimes, most often, it looks like a nominative, except for those 2 examples. Audi mi fili, listen, my son. Vocative is just like the @ sign in Twitter, if that's still a thing. Who knows? So when you're talking to someone directly, and there you go. So let's play with it. Let's play with the new phrase, because now we got that. We got imperatives, we got infinitives, we got vocatives. We're going to put them together in just a second. New phrase, we're learning de plus the ablative. De plus the ablative is kind of by meaning. It can mean 2 things. It could mean down from, like a separation phrase, down from, or it could use about. So it's like quotation marks, about. So let's see how these will work. So de plus the ablative, either about phrase or a down from phrase. You could also call it a separation. Such as, if you have a verb of knowing or saying, it's probably about. So he learns about the murder of Clodius. There are plans about war. Now, if you have a verb of motion, he sends down from heaven. So if you got that verb of motion, that's when it is, to jump down from the ship. So if it's a verb of thinking or saying, it's going to be one thing. And if it's a verb of motion, it's another. Let's put them together. Okay, here's your verb, deek. What's deek mean? It's second singular, present imperative, active, used for commands. So it's simple, no tense, volitive mood. Volitive mood, what's that mean? It's command, volition, desire. Active plus subject phrase. So you speak. Often in English, we don't put you in. If we do, we put it in you, comma, speak, not you speak. That's indicative. So oftentimes we just say speak. Close the door, open the window. Okay, so speak, accusative plus other signals. There's your object phrase, the truth. We have a verb, and we have day plus the ablative. So, what kind of day plus ablative phrase is it? Is it separation or is it an about? Well, we have a verb of speaking, so it's an about phrase, about Grumio. Take the truth about Grumio. Now, let's take a look at another example. Whenny. Now, you think, oh, that's first singular. Nah, there's no long E there. It's just simply a present verb. It's present imperative. That long I, the fourth conjugation tells us long I. So therefore, simple volitive and speak. Not speak. That's wrong. Cut that out. That's totally wrong. That should say come, or go. Day plus ablative. We have a verb of motion, so it's day plus ablative. It's a separation phrase. From the mountain, down from the mountain. Usually they come down from the mountain. Brute, vocative. Notice the E there. That tells you that vocative tells you what? That's the subject of the verb, or it's the address phrase, actually. Oh, Brutus, that's what you're talking to. Come down from the mountain. All right. Little cartoon on interjections, a little part of speech we should know. Well, we should have a little part of speech we should know. I'm gonna try that again, okay? Here we go. I'm gonna try it again. Well, I'd like to have it like for interjections. I'd like to have this cartoon. Maybe we won't have it. Anyway, interjections are like ehu, yuge, things that show emotion or excitement, right? Gee, hello, wow, the other words that are profanities that we hear a lot. Those are interjections. They're the purpose they have in a sentence are merely to add color or emotion. So sometimes by itself, sometimes with it by itself, sometimes with the rest of a sentence. Could be an exclamation point or offset by commas. Just a little thing. All right. Well, that shortened. Sorry about that. That was a good cartoon. Now let's play with the negative imperative. The negative imperative is when you give a command in the negative. And it's formed a little differently. You'll use two things. One, you'll use the noli or nolite, don't wish, or nolite, y'all don't wish, don't do it, with the infinitive to create a negative imperative, a commandment, don't do it. So Brutus, don't fear. But when you're talking to girls, it'd be nolite timere, girls don't fear. Now, this key is that you may or may not have an address phrase, but the key is that you do have a verb. And remember that it's a little stronger than don't. It's like don't even wish to fear. Don't even think about going, right? We've heard that before, right? Don't even think about saying something. So how do you analyze it? Well, let's analyze it together. Nolite, you always start with the verb. It's a second person plural, present imperative, active, not indicative. It's imperative. It shows commands. Don't wish. Who don't wish? All right, there's a command. Then you look for the infinitive, right? That's that ere ending. Tangere from the verb tanget. Don't touch or to touch. Don't even wish to touch. Literally, don't even wish to touch. But put it together in English, don't touch. So what do we got? Well, there's that vocative. Why isn't it nominative? Well, If it's nominative, it's a noun, it'd be third person, right? It'd be plural, right? And it'd be the subject phrase. But look, your verb is only possible to do second plural. So therefore, the vocative, it's kind of like an adapter. It allows a noun, which is third person, to become second person. So that's kind of cool. The address phrase. Oh, girls, don't wish to touch. Accusative. May is accusative. No, other signals object phrase. Don't even wish to touch me. All right, well, so that's about everything we have to cover in this chapter. I know it's oh no, there's one last thing. Boy, it's a long chapter, isn't it? Question words. We've started them. Ubi is where, when. Kur, why. But now we have a special question word that you have to figure out. Num. It's a question word that expects a no. So your teacher would say, surely you're not sleeping, right? Because in class you shouldn't be sleeping. Surely you're not coming to school without your homework. These are kind of almost like rhetorical questions, like questions that, the Romans are very similar to when our parents would yell at us and they'd ask us questions which really aren't. I mean, surely you did not talk back to me. That's not what I'm hearing. That's kind of that construction. So surely you're not sleeping. Ooh, there's a lot to cover in chapter 7, but just a lot of little things, not a broad stuff, just a lot of little things to cover stuff up that we need to know for the national to put us ahead of everyone else because we want to be the best because right now we're great, right? But now we want to be the best. So we want to move on ahead. Now, write down questions that you have. We'll cover them in class, either live or in person, however it goes. And I look forward to seeing you. Until that time, wale.